With the North London derby fast approaching and my nerves jangling more and more, I wanted to get some perspective from a Spurs fan who'll be at the game this Sunday to find out how he feels the season has gone so far, whether his perspective on Big Ange Postecoglou has changed since last year, what he made of our transfer window, and most importantly, what chance we have of turning over the old enemy this weekend. So a huge welcome back to musician and Spurred On Podcast regular, Jo Dudderidge. How are you, Joe, mate?
I'm good, thanks, Barnaby. I'm excited about the game on Sunday and trying to stave off my jet lag today.
I feel like it's probably worth asking you because I'm sure as a lot of people who watch this know, I do the watch-alongs now for We Are Tottenham TV during the game, so I haven't been at the stadium for a while. How's being in at the stadium been over the last, I don't know, back end of last season and kind of start of this season, I guess the Everton game, because obviously there's been a little bit of, I think a little bit of a change as the form kind of dipped at the back end of last season. A little bit of change, certainly online, with a little bit of a minority of the fan base getting a bit annoyed with Ange's, I don't know, I guess, stubbornness towards the style. Do you feel any of that in the stadium at all?
I think on the whole, everything's still really positive. From what I've tended to pick up on, and I think I might have said this before, that sometimes if it's not the regular season ticket holders in the stadium, sometimes the atmosphere can drop a bit. I sort of feel as long as the home form's been good, the atmosphere tends to be fine. Everton was fantastic. Like it was a great atmosphere. Obviously, away from home is a little bit more different in terms of our form, but actually the away fans are absolutely amazing. So yeah, I find it's a very reactive stadium. Sometimes you can really feel the tension when we're not, when we're not playing, or people aren't singing, or if it's an early kickoff. All these things really tend to affect the mood of the stadium
Yeah.
quite quickly. But also, if we score, the mood of the stadium could turn really quickly. So I like it like that. It's more tense.
Yeah, I think I mean I don't know how you feel like compared to back in the day because I went every week when pretty much Pochettino was in charge, and it really felt like something started to build, and that happened again, I think, for me, or from what I heard, certainly in the first 10 games of last season. And I don't think it would take much to spark that off again. Like maybe this Sunday, a big victory, kind of a big statement victory could do that. And it feels like that's what we're missing at the moment.
No, I agree, and I think although I don't think this weekend is the be all and end all of our season. It could really kickstart things if we do get a win or a really strong performance. I think having been at the derby games, a few times over the last few years, some losses, some wins. That atmosphere is like nothing else, and when the fans will be roaring, I think that will really push the players to just get that extra bit that you need to beat a side like the Scum. I mean Arsenal.
Yeah, I really hope so. Actually, I did a video and I talked about this a bit yesterday, but I don't know if you've probably seen that it looks like Odegaard's going to be out, Declan Rice is out, Marino, their new signing, is out. There's a doubt over Gabriel Jesus, and I said in my video yesterday, I feel like any other fan of any other club would be like, "Oh, we're going to win this game then," but for me, it feels like, "Oh, we're going to find a way to lose a game where they're missing their best players." I don't know if you feel anything similar.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, they have got a strong squad, but obviously, if Odegaard is out, and I'm not sure if that's been confirmed, it will be a massive miss for them. And a lot of that creativity comes from Rice and Odegaard, and I'm sure the Spurs players will feel that a little bit more confident if they are missing. But I think Ange is very much the type of manager who just wants his team to play their own game and bring it to them. And we're going to have to score, and we're also going to need hopefully Mickey back
Yeah.
to really stop them from breaking, because he tends to be the big difference in these kind of counter-attacking sides. And based on last time, they hit us with almost three sucker punch goals, and then we came back in the second half, but. I really feel like we got a good chance. We'll definitely score. I think there'll be a lot of goals, to be honest, and I
Yeah.
just hope they're all for us.
I do too. I'll ask you a bit more about the Arsenal game right at the end, but I get the sense then from the way you're talking, you're still a big Ange Postecoglou disciple like I am. You're not letting any negativity creep into your thoughts.
I understand the nervousness and the negativity, and I don't know if some of the subscribers will remember like Villas Boas, and the kind of football we played under him isn't too dissimilar in terms of the high line that we played. We didn't have the defenders really to do it, and we were constantly getting caught on the break in those kind of scenarios where there was the whole of our half just ready. You just had to kick the ball over the top, and uh, people would be in behind. So that, I think people are a little bit scarred from that kind of football. But obviously, we've gone to the more ugly, pragmatic styles under the previous three managers after Poch. And I really think some of these supporters who are getting the willies about Ange need to kind of remind themselves about how miserable that football was. I personally, I love the style that we're playing. I don't think we're there yet. I think Solanke obviously got injured in the first match, which was unfortunate, and Richie is obviously turning into Darren Anderton. With although Darren Anderton used to have the most Premier League appearances, he gets a bad rap for that. But
He was there for
yeah,
45 years.
he was, yeah. But yeah, I do feel like given having a proper number nine, and with the full squad playing, I do think we're playing great football. We're just not really being that decisive in the final third, and that's the thing really that needs to be fixed in order for us to make a good challenge, I think, this year.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think some of that will come down to like rustiness as well. The one thing that surprised me at Newcastle, like obviously exactly what you're saying, we made a lot of bad decisions in the final third. But the one that really surprised me was when Sonny was kind of running at the defense and had a chance to just slip someone in. Well, he could have slipped Brennan Johnson in a couple of times. And one of those times he chose to shoot. And there was a little bit of me that thought, does he not trust Brennan Johnson completely? I know Brennan Johnson, I personally think he will become a great player for Spurs, but he lacks a bit of confidence at the moment when he's starting games. But do you get any sense that maybe that has kind of bred into the thinking of Sonny, and that's why that kind of happened a little bit? Because he had a shot that then was blocked by Dan Burns. And I found that incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, a lot of these things will, what are the patterns of play? Sonny's not really been playing that consistently through the middle. There was
True.
another one where Johnson was hitting the byline and he put a great cross in. And actually, what Sonny needed to do was just run straight forward and attack that front post. And he pulled back instead, and he made the wrong call there. And I think it's just a communication thing. I doubt. I mean, Sonny is the best finisher, and I think Brennan Johnson, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he said this week the best finisher at Tottenham is Sonny. So
Mm,
it doesn't seem like there's any animosity there. And obviously Sonny's like everyone's uncle now. So
he is.
um
I'd love him
I
to be my
doubt there's
uncle.
any bad vibes. But yeah, they do. I think their communication needs to be better, but that'll come with playing more and ensuring that those, I'm sure they're working on it on the training ground, but ensuring that those patterns and what they're trying to do are gonna be taken advantage of in the games, because that's really that's what's missing. Whereas last year, I felt we weren't even getting to those points in certain games. We were so like cloggy in the midfield, but
Mm,
I feel like a lot of the even at when people play like 10 men behind the ball, they're still struggling to stop us from
yeah.
those incisive passes, which I think is a progression from last year, from what I've seen.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, it is worth always remembering. I feel like Solanke actually, he had his knock, I think, after about 10 minutes of that game. So we haven't
Mm.
seen anything of him yet. And yet he did get into some great positions in that game. It would be the perfect Sky Sports script, as I like to call it, for him to get a goal on his first in his first North London derby. Speaking of Solanke, but also I think what you just mentioned in terms of the difference in the clogginess of the midfield. I think it's worth kind of going into the transfer window a little bit. I'll mention who we've got rid of first. So Ndombele, Skip, Royal, Roden, Lo Celso, Sessegnon, Tanganga, Højbjerg, Brian Hill, plus loans out as well. And then in Solanke, Gray, Odegaard, Bergvall, and Yang Min-hyuk, who comes in January. It doesn't really count yet. Do you feel, I feel a little bit almost like, because we no longer have the options to bring on in midfield the likes of Pierre-Emile Højbjerg and Oliver Skip, who I really loved and were good servants to Tottenham, by the way. But I feel like almost because the options aren't there anymore, Spurs are already feeling less cloggy in midfield like that. It's almost like they've been freed up because more of that kind of old guard aren't there. Is that something to do with it, or do you think there's been some kind of tactical tweak?
I think there's something to be said in that, because if you think about those players like Højbjerg or Skip, who maybe naturally might have sat in those positions where Doggy and Porro probably want to be now,
Mm.
so that maybe that part of the pitch was getting a bit too busy, and naturally, I mean, Sar's pretty up and down, but in terms of his, positioning on between like the right back position and going up to the box. But Bayeval, if that's how you pronounce it, I think
Oh, I
that's up
think,
for
yeah, I did
debate.
hear that that's how you're supposed to do it, but I'm going to stick to Bergville because it's easier for me.
Yeah, it's definitely easy. Yeah, and Madison as well. I just feel it feels all a bit more dynamic now, and like players are trying to find space, and they're not trying to. Even Madison was coming deep last year, but that was causing problems because there was no one in the number 10 position
Mm.
to receive the ball. And Kulusevski's really impressing me this year. Any doubters of him, I think, are crazy. I think he's becoming, in terms of a ball carrying, attacking midfielder, he's such a great option.
Yeah.
Like, even though he's not quick, people can't get near him. And even as a false nine, when we haven't had Solanke or Richarlison, I'm really enjoying that. So yeah, I think the players who've left the club, they have kind of made us naturally more attacking, I think. I mean, I was thinking about the names you were saying. That was basically the lineup for that horrible Palace away game that
Yeah.
we lost.
Was
I
that the
think it was
3-0?
yeah, I was there. I was there. It was so grim, and I
That was
think,
Emerson Royale's debut, wasn't it? Bless him.
oh yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it didn't go well. It was
I remember
terrible.
that because I'd just gone on holiday to Greece, but we'd landed that morning and I managed to find like a pool bar that had the game on and there was nobody there. So I was just sat by the bar and I honestly thought I was in paradise. It was like dreamland. And then we got absolutely pumped away at Palace. And
Yeah,
wasn't that was under Nuno when we just won the first three games? Is that right?
I think that's right. And I
Yeah.
could be getting my games mixed up. But I think, did Tanganga get sent off, or
Yeah,
maybe it
maybe.
was?
Maybe that's right
Yeah.
because Tanganga had played in the first game against City at home where we beat them because and Kane wasn't there because he'd been trying to go to City. Oh yeah, halcyon days. I mean, it's worth talking about players like Emerson Royal, I think, because he became a bit of a cult figure and he always tried hard, but so very clearly not a player for Big Ange Postecoglou. And what I really love about this summer, and where I think a lot of credit has to go to Johan Lang or Lange or however you pronounce his name, is that all of the names that I kind of said on these videos at the end of last season that I thought needed to leave the club have left the club. Like it's almost like Football Manager where you're like, oh, it's at least they see what we're all seeing. And there does seem to be some kind of match up in what the kind of fans see compared to what the clubs see now, which hasn't always been the case.
No, I mean, I think the only guy clinging on is it Sergio Reguilon,
Sergio
who's
Reguilon,
like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think he's
Because
still
he wants to play
clinging on to.
Champions League football because he played for Man United in the Champions League last season or something.
He needs like one of those. Didn't Mourinho get him a big Spanish ham, but for his
Yes, he
signing on
did.
fee?
Yes.
Maybe
Yeah.
he's if it's anything like me when I get them from Aldi, it takes me about 3 years to finish him. So
Uh,
maybe.
he's still working on his massive jambon. Yeah,
Yeah, so
Reguilon's a weird one because if you remember in the first 18 months of him being here, we were all worried because Real Madrid had a buyback clause.
he did one good cross and everyone got excited, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah, but whatever happens. I mean, I think it's a bit. I know I'm kind of moving away from the subject, but the whole thing with the Spence thing has been interesting
Mm.
because I do think that whole Europa, just the management of the squad, and do trust Ange knows what he's on about, but it is a bit kind of scary looking at those kind of right back positions, and maybe there's a scenario that where Sergio ends up kind of getting a run in the team because Udogie gets like crooked or like Spence gets out, and I
Oh
know
my
he can't
God.
play Europa, but
I guess
yeah,
if it,
maybe.
I guess if Udogie got injured, then Spence would be in, and if Spence then got injured, Ben Davis would be in. But there's been talk this week that Galatasaray are interested in Ben Davis, and Ben Davis I think is our like fourth choice centre back as well.
He can't
Do you
go.
remember last season when we left ourselves short because we sold Davison Sanchez on the last day to Galatasaray? There is a danger of us doing that again, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think we should sell Ben Davis. I think he also has a statesman role at the club. He's been there the longest serving person. I think you can't get rid of Kane and Dyer, and then Davis. He has to stay, in my opinion.
He's the part of the
Even though
furniture.
he is, and he's actually really good. I mean, he's
He is,
not
yeah.
lightning, but he's a solid defender, and he can play left back. He can play centre back, and I actually think he's a really good passer.
I
He
agree.
makes incisive balls, and
I agree.
he can actually travel with the ball. So anyone, I think he had one bad game against Wolves, and everyone's written him off as the doggy backup. But I think Ange would probably not keep him there if he didn't think he could do a job, and he probably wouldn't not put Spence on the Europa list if you think he wasn't going to do a job. So maybe the Tottenham faithful
Well,
need to
wait,
have more faith in him.
hold on, Spence didn't get in the Europa League. He was the sacrifice, wasn't he?
That's what I mean. So
Yeah.
if Ben Davis is in the
Got it.
Europa League squad, I don't know why they'd be thinking of selling him to Galatasaray. It doesn't make
That's true.
sense.
Do you think, based on the history of Jed Spence, and I'm really pleased that he's had his redemption arc, I do think there's a talent there, but obviously a lot of the issues around Jed Spence previously have apparently been because, and actually Ange has talked about this, have been because of kind of some personality issues, and you hear talk, I think Daniel Farker, when he was at loan on loan at Leeds, talked about him being late all the time and stuff like that. Do you think Big Ange Postecoglou leaving him off the Europa League list might make Jed Spence spiral into some negativity that way?
Well, yeah, I mean, I hope not.
Bear in mind, you
He
don't
must.
know him at all, so I want a full
I don't
judgment here,
know.
Joe.
Yeah, I hope he's not like crying in a casino somewhere. Like,
which is what we'd be doing.
we would definitely do. I mean, if I'm Ange, then I'm saying to him, listen, these are my reasons for leaving you out. It's nothing personal, but these are my reasons. I mean, I still don't quite understand it, but it's something to do with needing 4 goalkeepers and 2 of them being club trained. I
It's
think
something to
I'd
do
be
with
right
needing
against.
12 goalkeepers and 9 of them being shite.
Yeah, just Skip's obviously changed the dynamic of the squad, but in that sense, but
You mean
yeah, I
Spence?
think he'll be all right. Well, no, Skip leaving because I think
Oh,
Skip
yeah,
was
sorry, yeah.
he was a club trained player. So, and then Spence only counts as you only get 4
You're right.
FA trained players. It's very convoluted, the rules, but
We can add.
I
I
don't
think we
know.
can add players in January. So if we manage to find a way around it in January, maybe he can be brought back in for because actually in January, it must be late January because weirdly, the last club group games of this new Europa League system are at the end of January now, rather than all the group being finished before Christmas.
Yeah, so some tweaks would be good there. I've got a feeling that Andrew said to Spence, he said, listen, if you're the first change for Porro, and in some games you might be first change for Destiny,
Yeah.
you're not going to be in Europa. Going to leave that to Ben because he's more experienced than you, and don't worry about it. You're part of my plans. So
Yeah. So maybe he'll get more Premier League minutes as a result, kind of thing. Okay, so let's talk a bit more about this North London derby. As I mentioned at the top, obviously absolutely cacking myself. What do you think? What's your instinct? Like you said, I'm really glad actually that you said that they kind of picked us off last year with sucker punches because that's exactly what happened. And I talked a lot after the Newcastle game that I think Arsenal will play a similar type of game, kind of narrow on the edge of their 18-yard box and then try and pick us off. But if Odegaard wasn't to be playing, and his injury to me looked very similar to when Harry Kane used to get those ankle injuries, like proper ankle roll, ligament strain at the very least. So I'd be very surprised if he was back for that. And I think he is the player who is best fit in their squad to pick out those counter-attacking balls to Saka and like Martinelli if he starts. So can we do it? Could
yeah, I
we?
mean,
Could we?
like you said, yeah, could we? I think the thing is actually stopping it at source. I mean, Newcastle on Sunday, gone. Madison, I think, went to press Joe Linton and
Yeah.
got absolutely sold.
And
I
because he
mean,
was
that's
already
going to
on a
happen.
booking, he couldn't take him down, which usually I think he would have had to do.
Yeah, and I think so, that is the key. I mean, last year, just getting some PTSD of what they were doing to us. I think the ball was coming out left, and Havertz or Saka were peeling off, and Saka was finding a lot of space on the
Yeah.
other wing, and they were pinging the ball like a long way. They're almost playing long ball
Yeah,
from
in
midfield.
behind you, doggy, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we've got to watch out for, those kind of things, because that's when we get stretched will be the thing. So hopefully they'll remember that, done the homework, and just be a little bit aware of that. I know Ange likes to play the Ange way, but if we're planning on playing like a box defense, then there's going to be all that space in behind, and we're going to have to be aware. And I don't know. I fancy Van der Ven as a sweeper on Sunday, but I doubt they'll do it.
Just to sweep everything up behind. And I assume, like me, you think that Pape Matar will play alongside Madison and probably Basuma rather than he wouldn't do what he did second half against Newcastle and play two creators because he knows Arsenal are going to sit deep. That would just be too mad, surely.
I wouldn't put it past him, but yeah, we'll have to see.
I agree with
It
you. I
might be.
think Kulusevski with Madison looks so good, and I think we'll see that a lot this season because of
Mm.
how many teams come to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and just sit back. And I'm really pleased that he's realised that that is the way to break down those deep blocks.
Yeah, I agree, and I also think the whole Brennan Johnson in the second half thing is also such an interesting dynamic, because it just brings that extra pace. When teams are a little bit more worn down, you can just set him on them, and he seems to just want affect the game a little bit better when he
Really
comes
does.
on. But I think that will change in time. I think he gets a lot of stick, but I think he's a real talent in my eyes.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, I'm going to make it hard for you before we leave, Joe. Your prediction for Sunday.
3-2 Tottenham.
3-2 Tottenham. Lots of goals, victory. Guys, let us know in the comments below what you think the score will be, who should play, and how you're feeling about Big Ange Postecoglou. Joe, thank you so much for coming on. Joe, where can they find your music? It's very, very incredible. So go and check it, Joe, out.
Yeah, you could go to www.lateryouth.com and there's bits on Spotify. And I'm actually just announcing a London show today for October 17th. So come down.
Oh, great. And that'll be all the details will be on the website, yeah?
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, well, thanks, Joe, and enjoy it on Sunday. I can suggest just getting as drunk as possible. That's the best way through a North London derby, I think. And guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. Please do press that like button. Do subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and you can be a member, only £1 a month. All the details in the description box below. Have a great rest of your evening. Cheers.